here it is, the questions. Next. So here, there's some funny questions asked in interview. Okay, so here is two questions are there. This is a very like a last year asked questions. Okay, so that's simple because you understand these funny questions. There's a lot of differences questions are. Okay, so it's not required. It's a world favorite differences like RAM and ROM differences, Windows Linux differences, hard disk and SSD differences. These are the main important differences, right? So there is a compulsory differences questions are, but sometimes we can't expect certain these type of differences questions. Okay, so if in case you got certain question in interview, you don't expect that is what is the kind of answer for this. So immediately you got struck and you try to recollect your memory from which question and answer you have written. But guys, you have a questions and answers. Suddenly out of your questions and answers, okay, some new question came up like this. Simple and very easy one, but still you don't think it's in the same thing. Like it's a very small one. You think it is a very difficult question. Okay, but just give a one half minute to make it understandable yourself first of all. Yourself think then. So how to tell? So make sure that is you have to divide and separately explain. Sometimes there is no direct, like a Windows and Linux, direct differences are there. Okay, RAM and ROM, direct differences are there. Okay, but web browser is different kind of stuff. Operating system is different. No direct differences. So that time, so this type of cases, you have to explain separately. Separately means you have to just tell about web browser. You have to tell about operating system. That's it. Nothing more. But make it little relative to it, if possible. So, what is a web browser? So, web browser, what application is an application, right? Use it to access website. You use a web browser to access website. Different web browsers are there, like a Google Chrome browser, a Microsoft Edge browser, Firefox browser, Brave browser, Opera browser, like a different web browsers are there. These web browsers are nothing but an applications runs on our operating system. Whether you are using Windows operating system or Linux operating system, these browsers are. So applications runs on operating system. The main purpose of web browser is access to website. So main purpose of operating system is running applications. Without operating system, you can't run applications. So that is important. Operating system main purpose is to provide environment to run applications, user interfaces, interact with the hardware and user. Okay, without OS, you can't run applications. So see, both are not the same thing. Like you ask for a difference between Chrome browser and Microsoft Edge browser. Maybe it is a Google, it is from Microsoft, it has this feature, it has that features like that. We can able to explain. But a web browser is different application and operating system is different. So without operating system, you can't run an application. Without a, you can't run a application. A web browser is an application used to access website. Operating system is used to provide environment to run an application. See, that is a kind of answers. Okay. Sometimes we don't expect these type of questions and there is no direct point of answer. So, but you can creatively say, so what is what in a separate manner? Like what is a web browser purpose? What is a operating system purpose? That's it. Another funny question it is RAM and hard disk. Of course, RAM and hard disk, both are memory devices. Both are memory devices. Okay. So there's okay. Not very funny, but it is good, easy. RAM is primary memory device. Hard disk is secondary memory devices. RAM is primary memory, hard disk is secondary memory. RAM store data temporarily. RAM is also called as physical memory, main memory. It is a volatile memory. It is an example of volatile memory. So RAM memory is temporary memory. Temporary memory. RAM never stores data permanently. Okay. And coming to the hard disk. Hard disk is secondary memory. Non-volatile memory. RAM is volatile. Hard disk is non-volatile. You power off your system, data gone in the whatever the data in the RAM, it will be gone. What if you are a power off your system, data remains in the hard disk. Hard disk is a mass storage devices. Hard disk is a non-volatile mass storage devices. Hard disk is to store your operating system, applications, and data. Okay, from hard disk, that operating system, applications, and data loading to your RAM while you are running your system. Okay, so this is hard disk and RAM differences. Okay. So RAM is primary memory, hard disk is secondary memory. RAM is volatile, hard disk is non-volatile memory. RAM storage is temporary storage, hard disk is it is data stores. Hard disk contains your operating system, applications, and data. RAM, it will temporarily run those things. For system running purpose, RAM is very important. For storing purpose, hard disk is very important. Okay. So there is a direct differences, so you can able to tell about direct differences. Sometimes direct differences are not there. So you have to explain about what it is, what is that is. So there is a small last one in the operating system, that is your Linux and operating system, Windows and Linux differences. Okay, so here it is. And device drivers introduction is there. Okay, to the device drivers. So of course, Windows and Linux direct differences. Right. Linux is a open source operating system. Actually, Linux is not a operating system at all. So actually, this Linux kernel actually developed by Linus Torvalds. Okay, we develop this Linux kernel by taken from Unix. From Unix kernel, he took some part and developed a open source Linux kernel. So then it is become a Linux. Linux or Linux, both are same. Linux or Linux, both are same. Why? Because who is developed? Linus Torvald. From what it is taken is from Unix. So that's why it is combination of Linus Torvalds, Linus and Unix is a Linux or Linux. Also you can say. Okay. So this Linux kernel is available to everyone. It's a open source one. Anyone take this Linux kernel, they develop it. Guys, open source and free both are different. Open source means the source code of an application or an operating system or a hardware is available to everyone. Okay, it's make available to everyone. It's called open source. So you take a source code of an application or operating system or hardware, you can develop as per your requirement and you can distribute as per your requirement. So like a Linux kernel is become a it's a open source. So different organizations like Red Hat, Oracle, Sun Microsystems, so like different Microsoft, Azure, what is that? It is AWS. So different organizations come to the this Linux kernel, taken it, develop this as their own version of means develop this kernel with different shells and distribute it as their own operating system. Okay, so if you are a programmer, you like Linux shell programming, kernel programming, you can download it and you can develop your own Linux operating system yourself. Okay, so Linux is open source. Linux OS. So actually the Linux is of open source. The Linux kernel is source code of the Linux kernel is available. It's not a proprietary, means there is no owner on the Linux one. Anybody can download Linux kernel and develop the Linux operating system and distribute as their own operating system. The original Linux kernel is developed by Linus Torvalds. Okay. So this is about a basic points of Linux. Coming to the Windows. Windows is not a open source. The source code of your Windows operating system not visible to everyone. It is a proprietary of Microsoft. Microsoft owning the Windows. It is developed and distributed by Microsoft only. Whereas the Linux is different distributions are there. Ubuntu, CentOS, Red Hat, Debian, Fedora, different distributions and flavors of Linux is there. Okay. And in a Windows is mainly GUI based, graphical user interface operating system, and less use of CLI. CLI means commands wise giving input is very less in general. Of course, in Windows server, certain servers purely CLI based, but majority, as I said, Windows desktops or Windows servers, mainly we are preferring GUI based. So GUI is a powerful GUI, very less of CLI. And coming to the Linux and Unix operating system, both are powerful CLI based systems. Very less use of GUI and sometimes no GUI kind of stuff. So Microsoft only distribute their operating system. When a new versions of OS is available, it will distribute. Okay. In a Windows, it's not a case sensitive. For example, you use capital ABC to small ABC, both are same here. Windows. Linux mostly it is not case sensitive. So case sensitive. It means so compulsory you have to follow the cap letters, small letters rules. And Microsoft Windows, where everybody knows that is you have to pay for the licenses. Of course, you are buying a laptop from directly store or online. It comes with an operating system, and you say no license. I'm not using any license. That's a OEM license, guys. Original equipment manufacturer licenses. It's a built-in license inside your laptop only or desktop only. So you don't need to buy a new license to use it. It is built-in license. Okay. But Windows is a licensed based. You have to pay for the licenses. Linux, whereas most of the Linux distributions are flavors, are free as per GUI, GNU and GPL. GNU means GNU, not Unix. G means GNU, N means not, U means Unix. So Linux is not Unix. Different. Next, GPL, General Public License, version 2. So as per GPL, these licenses are free licenses. Of course, for certain things, for getting an updates from your Red Hat, you are using Red Hat Enterprise Linux, you want to get an updates from Red Hat, or maybe you want to installing some packages, some supporting packages need a additional subscriptions. Okay. So for that purpose, compulsory you need to register with their operating system respect to websites. Next. Most of the people say Linux is no virus kind of stuff. Windows is full of viruses. No security in Windows. That is not a correct idea, guys. But Windows is operating system, one of the desktop operating system widely used in the world. Even the server Windows operating system, desktop OS, both are widely used in the world. Okay, even compared to Mac. Mac is, of course, it is very costly. So very less members of people are very happy. Windows is a more compatible with a large type of applications. Different set of applications you can download and install into your Windows system. Whereas a Mac and Unix are limited type of application support is there. With that to desktop applications. So as a desktop users, is this as a server or a desktop users, Microsoft Windows machines like Windows 10, Windows 11, and Windows 2000 Server 2022. So 2019, 22, 25 servers. Okay. So for a GUI. Of course, by default, security is also there in the Windows. Coming to this virus kind of stuff, guys. So most of the viruses created and distributed for Windows-based system only, because self-executions .exe self-executing executable file support is there. Okay, registry structure is there in the Windows and Win32 environment. So these viruses are either trying to hook to your registries or executing self-executing like .exe running, or maybe Win32 based viruses attacking on your Windows. So this is these things like .exe is registry kind of stuff, registry hooking kind of viruses like Trojans, malwares kind of stuff. Like Win32 based viruses won't run in the Linux. Linux having a different file system. Linux is different file system. Okay, different file structures and permissions and execution level sort of thing. So obviously these type of viruses won't react in the Linux based systems. But in Windows, of course, these are the main system files it is with it. So obviously this confuses people. Okay. So desktop OS, server OS, right? So Windows having a separate desktop operating system, server operating system. Linux and Unix mainly used as a server purpose only, not for a desktop purpose. Okay, very less use of desktop purpose, mainly use it for a server purpose. Windows is more user friendly, mainly Windows desktop you want to use is need a just user friendly because it's a GUI based, easy to understand to work with the Windows system. Whereas a CLI based Linux is not a user friendly. It is need a trained professional to do any task on the CLI based Linux. We have a built-in administrator or there is our built-in user act as a admin. So there is an admin word we use it to control your system, administrator. Okay. In a Linux, directly root user is available as an administrator of your Linux. Or you can make a normal user to sudo user also. Single user multitasking. Windows is single user multitasking. Multiple tasks you can perform at a time, but login with a single user either directly or multi-user multitask. Multiple tasks you are able to run it. Multiple tasks you can able to run it. Multiple users can able to multi-user multiple tasks. Okay. In Linux, multi-user, multitask. And Windows mainly more hardware required. Mainly more hardware requirement to run your Linux Windows-based system. Linux less hardware footprint because mainly CLI, even those applications running in it also CLI based. So you don't require the more and more graphical interfaces and experiences. They run faster. That's why this Linux server wide. So most of the servers are Linux based servers only we are using. Most of desktops are Windows based desktops we are using. Of course, in Windows servers also we have a certain features that is cannot be replaced by Linux. Okay. So these are the differences, guys. Read both the side of Windows and Linux. How many points you understand and explain? That is your answer. Which OS is more popular for desktop use? More popular is Windows only. Windows only. It is a more popular okay, for desktop purpose. Of course, some people certain maintenance related security and maintenance purpose they are using MacBooks, Mac systems for some people. Some people only for style because if they are having a MacBook, so they can show them there are rich people and we are using a Mac means higher category. Okay, so like so really no one knows, no one understand what is this MacBook. Okay, but where I said, for example, if I want to put a 70, 80,000 for a basic model of MacBook, so same amount I can put it for a Windows system with the high level graphics. So I can play games in my laptop, high level RAM capacities. So then I can run multiple virtual machines and I create my own lab environment in within my laptop itself. Okay, guys, money you can invest not for styling. Styling, of course, that is a different style, means which produce attraction and business. So both are security, of course. As we are a computer-wise graduates, means computer literate people, we can better to secure our system ourselves. Okay, not a lazy way. Okay, so it's people who are not having like you don't have the money or to want to show the business, like show themselves. There are rich people. Okay. And even last time I've seen it is a some kind of very poor organization, but they are using a Apple monitor. So on monitor is a Apple. It's like Apple is become an high content. Okay, but most worldwide the desktop purpose is Windows. Only was. Second is now Mac people also they are buying it because the barriers between the US and India is very less. Most of the people ordering from US or some people buying from it. Okay, 70, 80,000 you can. But Windows systems, you will get it from 25 to 35,000. Laptop, desktops are available. You put a 35,000, definitely desktop is available. Okay, these are the differences between browser and OS, hard disk and RAM, and Windows and Linux differences. So next part is about a device drivers. What is the purpose of these device drivers? How to manage these device drivers with business. Okay. Take a 5 minutes break only. So then I need a 15 minutes to complete it. Just a 5 minutes. Take small break wise. So you may better relax in here.